Imagine you are accused of a crime. You didn't do it. But it doesn't matter. Because in the year 1300, there is no lawyer. There is no court of appeal. There is no presumption of innocence. There is only one question. Will you confess? And if you don't confess willingly, they have ways to make you. Ways that will make your episode 2 of Dark and Disturbing History: Medieval Torture. The era when pain was not a century to the 15th century. Strength to endure the pain. If you were innocent, God would protect you. The rack. This is perhaps the most well-known torture device in history. A simple wooden frame. The prisoner is laid flat on their back. Their wrists are tied to one roller at the top, their ankles to another at the bottom. And then, slowly, the rollers are turned in opposite directions. The body stretches. First the muscles tear, then the ligaments. Then, if they keep turning, the joints themselves begin to separate. Shoulders, hips, knees, elbows. The sound it made. Witnesses described it as a series of wet, crackling pops. People who survived the rack were never the same physically. Their limbs hung loose. Some could never walk again. Some could never lift their arms above their shoulders. And yet, the rack was considered one of the more humane options, because at least it left you alive. The brazen bull, invented in ancient Greece, but perfected and used through the medieval period. A hollow bronze statue in the shape of a bull, large enough to fit a human being inside. The prisoner is locked inside. A fire is lit underneath. As the metal heats, the person inside begins to burn alive. But here is the detail that makes this device uniquely, deliberately evil. The bull was designed with a system of tubes running from inside to outside, so that when the prisoner screamed, the screams were filtered through the tubes and came out the bull's mouth. As the sound of a bellowing bull, the audience outside heard an animal, not a person. The inventor of the brazen bull, a man named Perillos of Athens, brought his invention to the tyrant Phalaris and proudly demonstrated how it worked. Phalaris was so disgusted by the cruelty of the man who built it that he locked Perillos himself inside and lit the fire. Even a tyrant had a limit. The Iron Maiden, a tall cabinet shaped like a woman, lined on the inside with long iron spikes. The prisoner is placed inside. The doors are slowly closed. The spikes were positioned with terrible precision, designed to pierce the body in places that were painful, but not immediately fatal. The eyes, the shoulders, the stomach, so that the prisoner would live long enough to be questioned. Historians debate how widely the Iron Maiden was actually used, but physical examples have been found across Germany and Europe, and court records from the medieval period reference devices matching its description. The strapado. Simple, efficient, devastating. The prisoner's hands are tied behind their back. A rope is attached to their wrists. They are hauled up into the air by that rope, their full body weight pulling down on their arms, which are wrenched backward and upward. The shoulder joints dislocate almost immediately. Sometimes weights were attached to their feet to increase the force. The strapado was a favorite of the Spanish Inquisition. Which brings us to the Inquisition. If medieval torture had a headquarters, it was the Inquisition. Established by Pope Gregory IX in 1231, the Inquisition was the Catholic Church's official system for finding and punishing heresy, meaning any belief that contradicted church doctrine. At its peak during the Spanish Inquisition, established in 1478 under King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, thousands of people were arrested, tortured, and executed. Muslims, Jews, Protestants, and ordinary people who simply said the wrong thing to the wrong person. The Inquisition's torturers operated under strict rules, which sounds almost absurd given what they did. Torture could not draw blood. It could not break bones. It could not be repeated on the same charge. So they found ways around every rule. The strapado didn't technically break bones. It just separated joints. The water torture, where cloth was placed over the face and water slowly poured, didn't draw blood. The rules existed. but the suffering found a way through every gap. One document from the Spanish Inquisition's records, discovered in the 19th century, described the official guidelines for questioning suspects. It read in part like a bureaucratic memo. Times, methods, required witnesses. The banality of it is perhaps the most chilling part of all. Evil, it turns out, does not always roar. Sometimes it files paperwork, the witch trials. Medieval and early modern Europe was gripped by terror of witchcraft. Between the 14th and 17th centuries, an estimated 40,000 to 60,000 people were executed for the crime of witchcraft. 80% of them were women. The methods used to extract confessions were brutal, but there was an even darker logic at work. The swimming test. The accused was thrown into a body of water. If they floated, and they were guilty. A witch. If they sank, they were innocent. But if they sank, they drowned. Innocent and dead. There was no path through that test that led to life and freedom. It was a system designed to destroy, dressed up as justice. Now I want to tell you about one person. Her name was Gilles Garnier. Wait, actually, I want to tell you about someone else. A woman whose name history did not bother to record. In 1692 in Salem, Massachusetts, a woman was pressed to death under a pile of heavy stones. Her name was Giles Corey. Actually, Giles Corey was a man, and his story is one of the most extraordinary acts of defiance in the history of torture. Giles Corey was 81 years old. He was accused of witchcraft during the Salem witch trials. He knew that if he stood trial, the court would take all his property. His children would inherit nothing. So Giles Corey refused to enter a plea. Under the law at the time, a prisoner who refused to plead could be subjected to peine forte dure, pressed with heavy stones until they agreed to stand trial, or until they died. For 2 days, they piled stones onto the chest of an 81-year-old man. His only recorded words, as the stones grew heavier, more weight, he died. His property passed to his children. He never gave them the satisfaction of a plea. In a system designed to break human beings, one old man found a way to be unbreakable. So what ended the age of torture? It didn't end overnight. Slowly, through the 17th and 18th centuries, philosophers began to question it. Cesare Beccaria, an Italian philosopher, published On Crimes and Punishments in 1764. He argued, radical for its time, that a confession extracted through pain proved not spread through Europe. Frederick the Great of Prussia abolished torture in 1740. France abolished it in 1789. England had largely stopped using it by the early 1600s. The world was changing, slowly, imperfectly, but changing. Before I close, I want you to sit with something. Every single device I described today, the rack, the brazen bull, the Judas cradle, was built by a craftsman. Someone sat down, thought carefully, used skill and knowledge, and designed something whose only purpose was to cause as much suffering as... That is the lesson of medieval torture. This was episode 2 of Dark and Disturbing History. Episode 3 is coming. Slavery. The story of how human beings bought and sold other human beings for centuries, and how the world looked away. If this series is making you think, share it, subscribe, leave a comment. The pages only get darker, but the truth is always worth knowing.